I call this meeting of the Hurst-Euless-Bedford Independent School District to order. That the record shows that a quorum of board members is present. This meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Good evening to everybody. This is a very exciting night. We always love when we get to recognize some of our best and brightest students, and we really appreciate such a huge crowd being out here tonight. So thank you for coming. We're going to start this evening with a invitation by Single Ministry Director Roy Ballard from Calvary Pentecostal Church.
Good evening, everybody. Can we all bow our heads? Dear Lord, we come before you tonight, dear Lord Jesus. Lord, to honor some very special students and scholars that are among us, dear God. I pray for them, dear God, in the paths that they go from this point forward, to the colleges they choose, the careers they choose, dear Lord. Lord, the families that are with them, to those that don't even have a family, I pray you touch these students. Lord, not just these students, but all students in the HEB school district, from the pre-K all the way to the 12th grade, to those that have families, to those who come from single parent homes, or may not. Maybe there's foster kids, but touch each and every one. God, we give you all the praise, all the glory, all the honor.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance. It will be led by Horace Baker and Janice Torben from Illinois. Stand right here. We have the American flag here, the Texas flag.
Pledge allegiance to the American flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one, indivisible.
So now, if you're out, we've got some certificates for you. And this level is going to be a little bit about you.
So Fort Baker is a sixth grader at Bell Manor Elementary. He's an energetic young man with a great interest in learning. Fort's positive character is such an asset and influence among his peers and to all being students. Janice Pearl is also a sixth grader at Bell Manor Elementary. She is an outstanding student who demonstrates responsibility and has exceptional citizenship. Janice is a calm leader and volunteers to help the entire campus.
Tonight, the Board of Trustees is meeting in its regularly scheduled monthly meeting to officially act on items included on the posted agenda. The board welcomes and appreciates comments and input from the community. Open forum is provided at each meeting to allow the public to address the board. There will be two open forums tonight. Open forum number 1 is to request regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to request or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation, if any, make a brief presentation with an identified solution when it's stopped. Remarks should not be addressed to the board as a whole, or should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or board member manual. It is my responsibility to determine if a person addressing the board has attempted to resolve a concern informally or through the district's complaint policies. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner, and asks that the speakers monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. Just so everyone knows, public forum Harrington, any comments?
The only comment I have is next week is Thanksgiving break for a lot of the students. May not have realized that, right? Anyway. So I do hope that everybody has the opportunity to slow down and give thanks for all that we do have. And I don't have any clarification either.
Okay, thank you. Now we will do our board activity chart. So I'll start with Ms. Cole.
Okay, so I've been pretty busy. This has been a very busy time. And as some of the things that I've attended, went to a couple of volleyball games. The Bell Trinity volleyball game is always one of my favorite volleyball games. Both of the teams really show up and give it their all, and they did a great job. And then, of course, I went to the Trinity volleyball playoff games. We had our board ambassador meeting, and Dr. Harrington and Dr. Brady did a great job of leading that board ambassador meeting. Lead HEB year 2 was the curriculum taught by Cicely Tuttle and Deanne Hollander, and it was on crucial conversations. It was a full day. I could only stay for half, but I got so much out of it, and I cannot wait to go through the rest of the curriculum on my own. And then Lead HEB year 1 was about strength finders, and it was on Saturday morning, I was able to stay for a couple hours, not the whole thing. But it was great. And then, of course, the Trinity Craft Fair. If you've never been to the Trinity Craft Fair, you are missing out. It is a fantastic fundraising event for the choir, and lots of holiday things to be purchased. But if you missed it, don't worry. There's an LD Bell Craft Fair coming up on the first Saturday of December. We did our Team of 8 training where we did our board self-assessment, which I thought was really a great exercise for us to go through. And then last week, I went to the HEB Chamber of Commerce State of the Cities address. Not to mention the Trinity Bell football game and the Trinity Zeph game. Right, I did not go to as many games as I covered some more things. I attended the Bell versus Trinity football game on November 3rd, and I also attended the high school musical junior production at Bell High School on November 5th. That was an awesome experience. I just want to know that I took the time to go and do that. I attended their final performance on the 5th, and as well as Julia, I attended the team of 8 training.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to say a quick thanks to our leaders this evening. We have those 2 students in green blazers as you get inside. These students are part of the HEB Student Ambassador Program, which is a select group of students chosen through an application and interview process to be the face of the district. They are trained to assist with public relations and communication services. And they are given the opportunity to possibly promote HEB while developing leadership skills. Tonight we have Paloma Magana, a senior at Trinity, and Emery Elliott, a junior at LD Bell. We've been using these opportunities to hear the voice of our district students by asking them ambassadors a question. This question will be asked by board member Chris Brown.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. We see your faces quite frequently. We know how involved you are and the time you put into this. So thank you for doing that. This is our opportunity to hear from you, and when I ask you about your student experience, not just this year, but throughout your career in HEB, would you please tell us how long you've been in HEB, how long you've been a student here? And then I want to hear the good, and I want to also hear where we have room for improvement. So tell us something that is really good, that we're doing a great job on, that you want to tell us to keep doing, something that we ought to know, don't change this, keep doing this, this is working, this is great, we love this. And then I want to hear something that we might have an opportunity for improvement on. Something we may or may not even know. be in this room tonight, but here's your opportunity to give a thank you or a shout out to a teacher who's really touched you either this year or throughout your career here that has inspired you or has meant a lot to you. This is a good opportunity to say thank you. So either one.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I want to talk about the programs that HEB offers. I've been an HEB student since kindergarten, so I've been here a long time. And throughout every stage of my life, there's been opportunities from Finnish immersion and French, German, Chinese, and even classes such as robotics and tech classes that I'm able to go to and learn. I think this has really benefited my life and has helped me grow as a person as well as teach me what I want to be when I'm older and help me prepare for a career. However, one thing that I think needs to be changed is the exemption policy. I know it's hard for students who are like me who want to go to school and but you're sick and you're not able to show up because things are expensive. And I think it's hard to continue our grades as high as we can if you're unable to be there because you're sick.
My name is Paloma Magana, and I have been a student in HBISD since first grade when I started the Spanish immersion program at Meadow Creek. And now as a senior, I am still in Spanish and am part of the IB program. I feel like the International Baccalaureate Diploma program has been an incredibly enriching program and has just meant so much to me as a student and as a person. And one thing that I would change is how much our educators and how much we communicate to our community about the IB program, because I really did not know enough about what this program stands for before I was in it. And I'm so glad that I am. So I am thankful to have this opportunity, and I would love if we could make steps to communicate so that others can as well. We get to thank our teachers now.
Okay, I would like to thank Coach Baxton. She is unfortunately not here, but she was my seventh grade science teacher and taught me so much.
In the true IB spirit, I would like to thank Mr. Wells for taking care of my schedule for as long as I've been a high school student. He has gone the extra mile for me and so many other IB students.
Thank you for all that. All right, at this time, I'll turn it over to recognize our National Merit College Board recognition.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this year. Students to be recognized. We are so proud of them. Mr. Harrison is here today, global initiatives. And I would like to begin with our, tonight we're honoring LD Bell and Trinity High School students who've been recognized through the National Merit Scholarship Program and the College Board National Recognition Programs. So the National Merit Scholarship Program awards recognition to students based on their exceptional scores on the 2021 Preliminary Scholastic Aptitude Test National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. I know, it's a lot. So the National Merit semifinalists from Trinity High School are Morrow and Tricken. Come on up, Morrow. Morrow's being recognized, photographed with Dr. Harrington, who's our superintendent of schools, and Mr. Alton Jackson, who's one of the assistant principals at Trinity High School.
Our other National Merit semifinalist is Ethan Schwartz. Next, we'll recognize students who earned National Merit Commended recognition. These students are going to be from LD Bell, so they'll be recognized by Dr. Harrington and Mr. Randy Belcher, principal of Bell High School. First, we have Jonathan Bajou. Okay, next from LD Bell, we'll recognize Jackson Boswell. Ryan Corrier. Catherine Horswood. Samar Sarda. Abraham Sawan. And Abigail Wisner. So we'll do our group picture now. So now we'll recognize Trinity High School students who received National Merit Commended recognition. These are Timothy Butterfield, Noah Collins, Aubrey Eberly, Elijah Ellis, Rasida Gautam, Simon Kamir, Jaira Hill, Arnawa Corrala, Paloma Magana, Benjamin Metzger, Khadija Saji, Alan Petrovich. And Niyati Shrestha. Next, we'll recognize our College Board National Recognition Program students. These awards are based on a combination of PSAT and MSQT results, along with AP exam scores and the student's grade point average. We'll recognize Bell High School's National African American Recognition Award winners, beginning with Abigail Esmelash. Joy Hope Mwenda. Ika Mokeke. Priscille Shalumba. From Trinity High School, these administrators were keeping them hopping. That's right. From Trinity High School, Yagin Abdullah. David Anani. Joshua Ayaku. Gabrielle Berry. Shalom I'm going to get this right. Keflamorayum. Sorry, Shalom. He gave me recording and everything, sorry. Ava Wesley. And Samaya Wesson. Our National Hispanic Recognition Award students from Bell High School, John Bengochea. Julia Loya. Alexia Luna. And Neisha Perez Santana. Our National Hispanic Recognition awardees from Trinity High School, Natalia Arzola. Cristian Baez Matos. Jacqueline Castillo. Paloma Magaña. Rebecca Ortiz Rivera. And Canyon Vecchia. Families, you know, these students earned these awards during the most trying of times. Can we give them another round of applause?
We're going to be adjourning the meeting and moving back, but before we do, I do want to thank all of you coming tonight, all the families. These kids don't get here without the support of their families at home, helping them. I mean, we're going to do everything we can here at school, but we need to partner with our families, and we are so excited to have all of you here tonight, and we're excited for what the future is going to bring for the kids. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to
And I just want to say a quick congratulations to all the students and to all the families. This is a great accomplishment. I mean, you have been identified as some of the most talented students in the entire nation, and that's nothing to take lightly. There's going to be universities all over the country breaking open their piggy banks, hoping to give you enough money to come to their university. So take advantage of every dollar and just don't underestimate what this means, because this means a whole lot, and we're very proud of you. So congratulations. So at this time, the board will adjourn the meeting and relocate to the administration building boardroom and then reconvene. Thank you.
don't have any fancy dress clothes because of June 5th. Whenever you have to buy all this, yeah, I was gonna do that.
All right, so at this time, the board will reconvene into open session. We're going to start with certificates of appreciation, and I'm going to be reading those off tonight. And the first certificate will be presented by Board Member Fred Campos. This certificate is to Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital, HEB, Auxiliary Incorporated, for a gift to Bell Manor Elementary in the amount of $2,711. The donation will benefit the school to help with the cost of the service dog that will help students cope with their social and emotional needs. Virginia Hill, Cindy O'Hara, Maribel Moeller, and Carrie McCarty will accept the certificate of appreciation.
I think Baxter should be in the picture too.
Yes, please.
Without question. Some days more than others. He's so cute. Oh. You should tell her, for those that don't know, Baxter's. For those of you that don't, in the room that don't know who Baxter is, he's become a celebrity in our district. Ms. McCarty could probably tell you more, but the Education Foundation gave Bell Manor a grant. And Ms. McCarty, why don't you tell the folks that are here a little bit about what Baxter does for you all at Bell Manor?
Sure. So Baxter is a campus. Oh, can you come over here to the microphone, please?
Let's do this for real.
That's right. Hi, welcome. Carrie McCarty, campus principal at Bell Manor. Thank you for inviting me up. Baxter is a campus comfort dog at Bell Manor. He supports students in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's puppy pet, sometimes it's crisis intervention. But without the HEB Education Foundation, as well as Texas Health Resource, H Services LLC, and some other kind donations, we would not have been able to do to have this opportunity. And of course, thank you to Dr. Harrington for allowing us to bring a dog on campus.
Well, we were just thinking maybe on particular evenings, you could bring him to our board meeting when we have a little more stress than normal.
He has a calendar, so we can certainly sign you up. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next certificate will be presented by Fred Campos to Lolita Habu for a gift to the support staff building at West Hurst-Sped Department. The donation was $2,404 of equipment donated of an easy standing chair that will be used by students who are unable to stand independently because of a disability, and an adjustable key tilting therapy bench that allows any child to reach the ground with their feet comfortably. Renee Reek will be accepting the certificate. The next certificate will be presented by Board Secretary Julie Cole. The certificate is to Virginia Hodge Molina Healthcare for a gift to PR and marketing in the amount of $4,500 to go towards the purchase of a sit-stand desktop workstations to help promote staff physical well-being. Deanne Hollander will accept this certificate. The next certificate is to Jamie Roberts, Director of Group Sales for the Texas Rangers Baseball Club, for a gift to PR and marketing. This was a $20,000 donation for 1,000 Texas Rangers tickets for the September 25th game that were distributed to staff to encourage and increase social well-being. Ms. Hollander will accept the certificate. The next certificate will be presented by Don Jordan Wells. This one is to Amanda Majors, lead operator for Nothing But Cakes in Hurst, to the PR and marketing department. This was a $1,425 donation of 300 Nothing But Cakes.
Wow.
Free bundlet coupons that were used for staff motivation and staff recognition incentives to increase career well-being. Amanda Majors will accept the certificate. The next certificate is to H Services LLC for a gift to Bell Manor Elementary School in the amount of $1,000 that will benefit the school to help with the cost of the service dog and will help students cope with their social and emotional needs. Anna Hawkins, Melina Morton, Carrie McCarty, and Baxter, the comfort dog, will accept the certificate.
Oh, he's such a good boy.
The next certificate is to Atmos Energy for a $5,000 gift to Midway Park Elementary. This donation will be used to help purchase early literacy materials, staff appreciation, and incentives for the school. Ms. James will be accepting the certificate. The next certificate will be presented by Board Member Andy Cargile. This certificate is to Hurst Hills Elementary PTA for a gift to Hurst Hills Elementary. The $1,500 donation will be used to help cover the cost for school shirts for all students and staff at Hurst Hills Elementary. Missy Donahoe, Jessica Eatman, and Emily Milligan will accept the donation certificate.
Yay, PTA.
See, the next certificate is to Brenda Whitley, Texas Health Harris Methodist, for a gift to Viridian Elementary Counseling Department. The gift was $988.35 for hand sanitizer bottles to promote health and cleanliness, and Red Ribbon Week pencils and bracelets that were passed out to all students during Red Ribbon Week. Melanie Mans will accept the certificate. Our next certificate is for the Northeast Tarrant Lions Charities for a gift to Hurst Hills Elementary. The $1,000 donation will be used to help purchase the supplies needed to educate students and staff on issues such as bullying and drug awareness during Red Ribbon Week. Misty Donahue, Jamie Parker, and Mitch Harstock will accept the certificate. Board Member Chris Brown will give the next certificate to Textron Charitable Trust Cyber Grant for a gift to Bel Air Elementary in the amount of $1,815 to be used to purchase classroom supplies for students. Erica Martin will accept the certificate. The next certificate is to Spring Gardens PTA for a gift to Spring Gardens Elementary in the amount of $1,000. The donation will be used to help pay for school programs that will benefit the students at Spring Garden Elementary. Sarah Williams will accept the certificate. And our final certificate for the evening is to the HEB ISD Retired Schools Employees for a gift to PR and Marketing. The $1,000 donation will go towards the Better Together Employee Appreciation Program. Ms. Hollander will accept the certificate, along with Donna Stevens and Jerry Poole from the HEB ISD Retired School Employees. And as always, we want to thank everybody for their generous donations. We couldn't run the kind of school district that we really want to run without this additional help that we get from the community. The total donations for tonight were $45,343.35. We are ready for open forum number 1. Ms. Hollander? Ms. Hollander, nothing?
Ms. Hollander?
No cards? Okay. All right, and we still don't need a closed session? All right, so we are ready for the consent agenda. Does any board member have any items they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, then I will accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. All right, we're ready for reports and presentations. Disbursements for the month of October 2022. Any questions on disbursements? All right, Dr. Norgard, District Benchmark Assessment, DBA report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are ready for the first DBA report of the season. I've brought a few other assessments to you, but we are ready to launch into DBA season. So the data that I'm bringing to you tonight is interim data that is leading towards our strategic plan success measures having to do with meets grade level and master's grade level on STAR. I do want to remind you of a little bit of context as we look at this first DBA. DBA 1 in elementary math is a partial. I remind you of this every year. It's not a full released STAR exam. It helps build our students' stamina. It's designed to be completed in 2.5 hours, not 4 hours as a typical full assessment. And so in that shortened time frame, it's only including instructed content, not full STAR content for the year. To remind you, when we look at trend data, in the 2021 school year, we have to kind of think back to where we were. That is when we had OLO and traditional students, and when we looked at the data, our online learning option students, their data from when they were testing at home appeared to be largely out of line with the rest of our student data. So at this board's report a couple of years ago, for that trend data, we're only looking at students that were traditional at the time of testing and tested with us in person. But I do want to spend just a little bit of time with you. This DBA 1, first DBA that we're bringing to you with our new STAR item types. You have heard me talking about the STAR test is changing. You've probably heard it in the news. I'm sure you've heard it in other workshops. But I wasn't sure how much exposure you had had to when we say, oh, it's not going to be all of these multiple choice anymore. So I did bring a few items just to show you for some scope of really what we're talking about with this redesign. So there's actually 14 new item types that have been introduced by TEA. Don't worry about reading this tiny, tiny font. It was just I wanted you to see the scope of how large this is, because you can see of the 14 item types, one of them is in all 4 content areas. Some are in 2 or 3 content areas. Some are unique to only 1. So I'd like to, as I bring you the first DBA report in each of the content areas, just give you a brief snip of what testing might look like, because it is very different than a primarily multiple choice test. Math and science has had some gridables, a few items, and we've had our essays in our ELA. But in general, we're introducing a lot of new item types, including 4 you'll notice that are unique only to math, and there's 1, the extended constructive response, that's unique only to ELA. But I want to give you a brief taste of what the 10 new item types that could be seen on the math test would look like as we are beginning to incorporate these for our students, not only in their DBAs, but in classroom exposure as well, so that when they get to the test, it's not unfamiliar, where just the unfamiliar could prohibit them from really demonstrating what they know. So 1 item type, inline choice. This is a 3rd grade example that's been provided by the state. So you'll see they have drop downs. Sometimes there's only 1, sometimes there's 2 that they have to complete for this statement. So instead of for multiple choice, they're doing an inline choice. There's also drag and drop. This is another 3rd grade example. So you can see there's, may not show on this big screen quite as dark, but there's little gray squares behind these numbers. They're little tiles that they have more to choose from than their spaces to drag into, but they would drag and drop those into the correct locations to complete that table. This one, a little bit like a multiple choice, I'm choosing from those points that are available, but this is called a hotspot. This is a 4th grade example because the correct answer is dependent on location. That's what makes it a hotspot, is I'm choosing a location in an image that gives me the correct answer. Text entry, this would be very similar to what we've had previously in math.
Sorry, Dr. Norgard, can we go back to the hotspot?
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to wrap my brain around how they're doing this math on a computer. So how do they check which one is the correct answer?
We talked about this when I was working on this report about giving y'all a link, making these live. I didn't want to take all the time in this report to go out to this testing portal, but I can provide the link for y'all in the Friday
They just
update.
click if L is the right answer.
If L was right, I'm going to have, well, whether it's right or not. If I'm choosing L, I just click on L.
Would it jump in real time to show them that, or would they just pick L?
I do not believe Ms. Adcox is here. The ray does not move, right? They're simply clicking on the.
Oh, okay.
We have not seen that yet. But again, I'm happy to share with you all the link if you want to go and explore into those sample tests. So it is definitely a different way of looking at the test. So text entry, because a string of characters on math, they're numeric characters, where they're working a problem, but instead of picking from answer choices, they need to, using this text entry system, provide the answer. You can see it includes also where the answer might be a fraction. They have to construct a fraction there in that answer choice. Fraction model, maybe they have to build a fraction. They have to read a problem and decide how many total parts should be in this fraction model, how many of them need to be shaded, and then they'll click and it will create the model.
So on the previous one, the previous example, where would they do their work? Do they do it on a separate screen, or do they do it on a piece of paper? Or?
Primarily, we've still had them working. Paper is allowed while they're doing the test. That's been quite a transition in online testing in math and really working with students, because I'm taking numbers that are on a screen. I'm now recording them here. I'm working and moving back and forth. So they do have note space that they could work online. I'm looking to Ms. Adcox to verify for me, but it's very small. We've primarily been pushing for the strategy of do your work on scratch paper. They can also have grid paper that's printed, which used to always come printed in the back of the STAR exam, because they also use the grid paper quite a lot in working with decimals or fractions and shading in models. So they have all of that, and they can have as many sheets of the grid paper as they want, or plain scratch paper. Well, you can see this is a challenge versus I'm writing and marking up on my problem, and then there's my answer. So the fraction model, they're building the model. They've got to figure out what's needed in the parts. That's a 4th grade example. So 5th grade, here's a graphing example, and there can be lots and lots of ways graphing looks. I just tried to pull one of each type just to give you a little bit of exposure. So they've got to read about this problem type, and in the past they might have picked from provided graphs. Now it's asking them to plot 4 points that match that rule. Well, there's more than 4 that would actually fit in here. What's really unique is not just how the students respond, but how these items are scored. There's, I believe the PowerPoint for math is about 70 slides that explains how math will be scored now, because it's asked them for 4 points. If I get 4 correct, do I get 2 points of credit, but I got 3 and I only get 1 point, but 2 also gets me 1 point. It's really interesting. Or I plotted one that was completely wrong versus I only put 3, but they were all 3 correct. So there's lots of layers to the scoring here. This one is a multi-select, but you can actually tell by those boxes around. Multi-select means there's more than one. Select multiple answers. We have been told, and all of our examples tend to indicate, it will tell them how many. And just instead of saying, click any that this applies to, it will say select 2, choose 3, identify 2, whichever it is supposed to be. But those little boxes mean those are also hotspots, so they would move over it and click on the one. So it's both multi-select, it's hotspot, it's also what we used to call kind of a dreaded not question, because students' brains tend to think in the positive. I'm looking for the things that are right, and now I have to find out what's wrong, and I need to find 2 things that are wrong. So many layers to this 5th grade example. Match table grid is another type of new item. You will see this in things other than math, where it's basically categorizing, like there's rows down the left of things that need to be categorized according to something. For math, it's prime and not prime. For social studies, it might be countries, and it's northern versus southern hemisphere or something like that. But a match table grid. But again, how I score in this, it's not a single answer. It's what did I do with all 3 of these? Did I get 2 out of 3 correct? Did I only get 1? Did I get all 3? So lots of layers. Number line, there are different ways that number lines can look based on the grade level, but I picked a 6th grade example where they have to choose, they have to solve this inequality and choose, is it an open or a closed circle and which way the arrow would go. An equation editor. So before, when I showed you text entry, these first 3 columns that kind of look a little bit like a 10-key pad, that was text entry. But you see for equation editor, I've added variables, I've added all the operators, add, subtract, multiply, divide, I've got my comparison symbols. I could represent fractions before, now I can represent exponents, I've got grouping symbols, all of those things to create an equation that is going to match that scenario. So any questions about those item types? I thought it might help you to see a little bit when we talk. Yes?
Okay, first off, this is awesome. Thank you for giving us visual representations of these types, because it certainly paints a different picture than when I was a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade taking tests. In addition to them getting the right answers, are any of our students struggling with the computer literacy part of it? Like, ooh, I know this is 48, but now I got to click hit this, and enter to make it pop up on the screen? Or are most of our students pretty much good with that?
That is one of the reasons why when we first went into shutdown that we immediately switched to online testing for our students. We think that it is an exposure and a practice, so we have tried to give our students as much exposure. And you'll see when I get into a little bit later, I have some pictures of how we are truly moving our students from here I'm working with the manipulatives, here I'm drawing representations, here's kind of the working out on paper and then taking it to a device. That it's not just thrown into this. How have we built that support and that thinking into it? It does allow, with this, like an equation editor, it actually allows for more types of thinking, because in the past there's several ways the equation that satisfies this can be written. Did you start with x? Did you put x on the end? Where did you put the equals? Something that could have been multiplied by 4 versus dividing by 1/4. And in a multiple choice, if the way that I thought of the equation isn't there, it might hinder some students because they're like, oh, I don't see my choice, versus this way they're building it correctly. TEA is telling us they will have programmed it to read every possible correct equation as correct. So we'll see how that goes.
And then one more follow-up question, just from what you just said. Does that mean that it's also tracking, like if I get x equals 3 plus and I can't figure it out, it's like giving partial credit to that? Or
So that's what's kind of complicated about all the scoring guides. I believe an equation editor is an all or none type of question. There are some, like the multi-select, that I could get part or not. There are multi-step that it's like if I don't get the first step right, it doesn't matter if my second step was right because I must have arrived at it for the wrong reason if I missed the first step. So it's pretty complicated, but I believe the equation editor is an all or none point value. We've tried to include, we being the math coordinators have put a lot of work into making sure that we have, even though this was a partial DBA, that proportionally they are seeing the same number. When the legislation first came out about changing from this heavily multiple choice format, the number 75% was used a lot, but it was not 75% of the questions. You know, it said no more than 75% of the test should be multiple choice. It was no more than 75% of the points. Multiple choice questions will continue to be 1 point. These new item types, some are worth 1 point, some are worth 2, because they take longer, you know, to interact with them. So some of them, you're spending more time with it, you can earn more points with those items. So it's not that a fourth of the test is suddenly these new item types, but at least a fourth of the points earned will be from the new item types. Okay, does that give you all something to?
So you might have 60 multiple choice and 20 of this type of question on a test.
You could.
Okay.
You could even have less, because that would be exactly 25%, but it could be that maybe there were 15 of these questions. Some of them were worth 2 points, some of them were worth 1, but no more than 75% of the points can come from multiple choice. Okay, so it's a very different style test. I definitely wanted to show you this before we start looking at trends and data, because we do need to proceed with caution when we say, oh, here's where this year's DBA was compared to last year's DBA, because last year's DBA was a multiple choice with a few griddable numeric answers, which have always been in math, but now we're incorporating a lot of new kinds of thinking. So when we look at third grade, we do have students testing in English and Spanish, but of course it's the combined numbers there at the bottom that we're going to carry through with our data and trends. So when I look at different groups of third graders, okay, so I'm looking at different groups of third graders, how they compare. This year's group is above last year's third graders at this point in the year on approaches and meets, and they're just right even with where last year's group was performing at masters. When we look at the performance objective targets, we have to remember those were set according to last year's groups. So I first look at that. If you are only looking at the bottom row and you're like, wow, we're at 42 and we need to get to 59, that seems like a big jump. Well, just like we talked about with Reading 3D, how much kindergartners grow across a year, third grade, this first year that they're having exposure to STAR testing, we see some really big growth, because you need to remember that goal of 59 was set based on last year's third graders. this group of third graders is already exceeding that group of third graders. So just keep that in mind. It does look like those targets may be a ways away, but they were set by a different group of students that this group is outperforming at this point in the year. So just historical trend data, how we tend to grow from DBA 1 to DBA 2 to STAR. We have not over last year, and we'll see what happens this year, seeing because this is the partial, sometimes we start higher on math, dip down at DBA 2, and then rebound. That really only happened at Masters last year, so we'll continue to watch to see if a new trend is emerging in our math data. There's no cohort history, it's their first year in third grade. But in fourth grade, I can see the combined English and Spanish performance, so that's what I want to compare against previous year's performance. All green arrows, so we are continuing to grow over where last year's fourth graders were performing. And these are the performance objective targets, so actually we are very close or exceeding in some cases. And when you look at the history, this was a unique group when you look at last year's. Again, we're seeing a new pattern emerge of what happens from that partial DBA 1 to the full DBA 2 to STAR. So we'll continue to watch that and see, but we are seeing growth as we move across those. So now I have some cohort history. Instead of comparing to how did other groups of fourth graders do, this is this year's fourth graders, their beginning of year DBA 1 score, and how did this group of students do at third grade? So actually at approaches and meets, the purple and the blue lines, we did see that little dip that we typically see across a year. You know, they grow across one year, they come back into the next year, suddenly it's a new year, it's new standards. But they just kept on growing at Masters. We think we did not let our foot off the gas and have continued to push. And we're going to see this in a couple of grades, that we actually did not fall back as they entered into a new grade. We do need to extend to hit those POR targets. However, if you remember that those STAR targets were set on last year's fourth graders, look at this group of fourth graders, how they were performing in third grade. They were actually already exceeding that. So we expect them to actually exceed those targets. So other than Masters, which they're now exceeding already at this DBA 1. So we expect some great performance from these students as we continue to push and develop and fill gaps. Fifth graders, we have just a few students testing in Spanish, but we do look at the combined English and Spanish data to bring into our comparison to see continuing to grow. And we can see the performance objective targets that really already exceeding in two areas. We've got a little more historical trend data. And then for this group of fifth graders, when you look back to when they were third and fourth graders, at neither grade shift did they fall backwards. Mm-hmm. So we're just continuing to push. When we're taking them in the fall, it's not a let's get a slow roll and we'll gradually warm up to this year. It's we are warming straight into the year and ready to go. So while the last group, I said they were already the targets. They had already exceeded the targets based on the last year's students. This group, these targets, 87, 61, and 35, those were set for last year's fifth graders. But if you look at this group of students as fourth graders, those are some stretch goals. They were last year 51% meets at STAR, and the target is 61. But they're showing us on the DBA that they're capable of this. So we'll continue pushing, but that's just always something to keep in mind as those targets were set on the previous grade students, and we need to look at what this cohort of students have done. And then we move into sixth grade, still looking really strong, a slight dip at Masters, but that was a really high, strong Masters performance in the 40s the previous year. So we'll keep an eye on that, but not particularly alarming when you see how high the previous year's group had been. And these are the targets for where they are expected to be. And so here is the trends from DBA 1 through STAR. And this group's student cohort performance history, I'm going to be excited when the break with no testing finally falls off of the cohort trends, but right now it's still there that this group, when they were third graders, took a DBA 1 and no other testing. But again, you're not seeing the fall back as they're crossing into grades that we have typically. Yeah. So I think we're making sure we don't wait to see how are they doing and now let's get some intervention going. teachers have really been right on that, and when they need some support, let's get it going. So, and very, very close already to the targets. So how are we getting there? One of the things that we have done in instruction, these are teachers engaging in our instructional planning sessions. This is a move we have made in our professional development model. We, for many, many years, have had what we would call curriculum previews that was really focused on what's coming up the next 6 weeks in the curriculum, which is, of course, very important for teachers to know. But we were having both experienced and brand new teachers, and what a 0-year teacher needs to know about upcoming curriculum versus how does an experienced teacher push, grow, extend, two different audiences. And as we've moved and learned more about our opportunities with blended learning, some asynchronous, we've moved that part that is truly just kind of walk me through what's coming up, what am I teaching students, to be a video format that's linked in the curriculum unit. We figure that also helps a 0-year teacher. I didn't quite get it. Let me watch it again, versus I went to one after-school training session. And so this instructional planning is really moving to breaking it down. How do I approach students? Looking at the pedagogy. How do I build the content knowledge? And especially as we talk about 5th and 6th grade teachers, that they may be the only math teacher on their campus. At the lower grades, you know, either all the teachers, K2, frequently all the teachers teach all the subjects. So they can kind of plan together. 3rd and 4th, there tends to be maybe two math science, 2 ELA, but by 5th and 6th, there's frequently only one on campus. So these are also key times to meet with somebody else, maybe not at your campus, but in your grade level, to really think about how are we pushing students? How do you present that? What's the most engaging way? Then also switching from teachers to some students. Here's some pictures I wanted to share with you where you can see I mentioned all the way over on the right is the student. That would be an example of they've done their work. You see on that dry erase board and moving it to the device. But before they even got to a device in their hand, you can see kind of the progression of what we're doing in those classrooms. And then these are some of our older elementary. The kinds of discussions that they're having is going to lead to this type of thinking you saw in those new item types. Overall, well, it's overwhelming to think about that. We're honestly excited and anxious to see how these new item types help our students display their thinking, to really get in there. And that is, I showed you pictures of teachers in PD. We have our elementary and secondary math coordinators have been working on some series, both building thinking classrooms and introduction to representation. These are book studies that they're doing with different groups of teachers or our instructional specialists to really help them. What is the model? What is the representation? How do I get from these things I can manipulate to what it might look like on my device? But all the way through, we don't just jump to one. So any questions about 3rd through 6th grade math?
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to take the opportunity to say that this doesn't happen without really great planning on y'all's part and really great instruction on the part of the teachers. Teachers have done amazing things the last few years, but this is the result. This is what happens when, you know, all of those things come together to, focus on what kids need.
So, Holly, I think it's great that we're not having, I'd gotten used to having that kind of roller coaster every year. So it's great to see that that doesn't have to be the way it is. And you mentioned intervention. Has ESSER played into that? The fact that we have had some...
Absolutely. We do have ESSER interventionists that are helping and supporting with teachers, but I also think it's a lot of, as I mentioned, the instructional planning, the kinds of trainings that our coordinators are providing to teachers to help them see other opportunities, because the ESSER intervention is great because it's an extra person and it's an extra support, but at the end of the day, those students belong to that classroom teacher, and that teacher needs to be the best expert in knowing what those students need. So absolutely, it is great to have extra hands. It allows us to do more pulls, smaller groups. But I think we have also seen our teachers come a long way through this training in really being better equipped to, okay, they're struggling, what do I do?
Yeah. As board members, it's important, and a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about our own board advocacy, as we're going into another legislative session. So it's good for us to know exactly what's working for us and what we need to be telling people. This is what's working in HEB, and this is how you can support us keep it going. So any of that kind of information we can get is helpful.
We would not turn down additional years of support. However, we have been planning from the coordinator side, how have they built a system that our curriculum sustains that when we don't have all those extra hands on deck?
Thank you.
And don't think it was lost on anyone that you changed Stronger Together to purple.
Every report is a different color. I didn't wear purple tonight, but, you know, read whatever you would like into that. It'll be a different color next time.
Go TCU.
All right, enough of that. Okay.
Enough of that. Go
Uh,
TCU.
Any questions on employments and resignations and retirements? All right, school calendar options, Ms. Hollander.
Sorry, I sat down.
Oh, yeah, your name's on this too.
Okay, I believe in your packets you can see, I'm sorry. She's going to talk through those. I'm going to say a few words and then she's going to talk through them. But you'll see that we did give you two options for the 2023-24 school calendar. I want to officially thank Holly Norgard. She has done a fabulous job of counting minutes and days, and she actually said she enjoys it. So I appreciate that she enjoys it.
Just those numbers.
That's it. And as a reminder, we did provide an opportunity for our community and our staff to weigh in on which calendar, whether it's A or B, and I will share those results with you after Holly kind of walks through the two options.
And I like that Fred was able to participate in that as well as representing the board.
And, you know, I just want to make a comment while we get to that. I think most of us in this room know, but just for our general public, it was nice to see again the number of people and the cross-section of the community. And you had PTA, you had moms, you had administration, you had, that room was amazing to see the number of people that are studying this. So it isn't like they're presenting this to us at a whim. It's really a lot of thought has been put into it. And it was nice to see that firsthand again.
Okay. I do enjoy working on the calendars. There are unique challenges every year, and this year had several. If this was Sudoku, this would have been more your harder expert level instead of your easy, and that frequently has to do with where are holidays falling, etc. So the only difference in the two calendars is the Christmas break, but I do want to explain to you why some things landed the way they did throughout the year, because they landed that way in both calendars for the exact same reasons. So complications, Christmas is on a Monday, so you're either out really far before Christmas or you come back much later in January. Easter is in March. We had some feedback asking why they didn't get Good Friday off in April. Well, Good Friday's not in April. Other things complicating it. There's always a one-day shift, you know, moving from year to year. What used to be on a Wednesday is now on a Thursday. Well, we've got a leap year coming into this. So in the spring, we're off by a day. In the fall, we're off by 2 days in the spring. And graduation didn't move. So graduation's 2 days earlier. So everything's got to fit in earlier. The way testing has moved, the STAR windows, it stretches across April and May. And while we have certain days that are designated testing days, there's also windows for making up days. And one of the things that we found last year for where we had scheduled our window for STAR, keeping in mind House Bill 4545, if we have a student who is absent and we don't have enough days built in for all of our students to make up the test, being absent from a test is the same as having failed the test or chosen not to take the test, where you are required to complete House Bill 4545. So losing days in April is a little tricky if we could potentially compound some absence issues. So all of those things aside, here's where we landed on the calendar. Both of these calendars are an August 10th start. We started August 10th this year. It was a Wednesday. This is a Thursday. And looking at this model, we really didn't want to ask all of our teachers and staff to come back when it was still July. New teachers are coming in July, but we did leave the full teacher return on August 1st. Somehow the 31st of July is more than 24 hours ahead of August 1st, just in that field. So that's where we landed on this August 10th start day. Nothing much in September. We have Labor Day October, we have Columbus Indigenous People Day. So because of this shift, though, this calendar introduces something that I don't think we've ever had, but I did enter into it with consultation from both Mr. Harris and Mr. Belcher. Trimester's ending in the middle of a week. But this is a half day for the high schools on Monday, October 30th. It is a half day for all of our students on Halloween, and a full work day, not PD day, a full work day. This is part of what allows the trimesters to work, because counselors need time to fix schedules and teachers to finalize grades, et cetera, on the day after Halloween. That means that we are in session in both of these calendars on Election Day. Last year, we took to the calendar committee 2 options that both had Election Day as being that PD / work day, and they overwhelmingly asked for a 3rd option that had the day after Halloween off. We did have some of this discussion in one of our groups. Remember, this will be the November 23 election. We may need to think differently in 24, but in both of these options presented, we did leave that PD instead of moving it to Election Day as it has been in some previous years. It has been back and forth, so we have it on November 1st as a PD work day for our teachers. The full week at Thanksgiving, and this is the difference in the 2 calendars, is right here at Christmas. Calendar A has students getting out on Friday the 15th. This year we're getting out on Friday the 16th, so this is the one that most closely resembles what we're doing this year, but it is actually just even a little bit earlier, so it's more than a full week ahead of the actual Christmas date. It would have teachers returning for a work day on the 3rd, and then our students for a PD work day on the 3rd, and then all students coming back on Thursday. The rest of the spring look the same between 2 calendars. There would be Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. There would be, we are going into the President's Day holiday. This past year, we were able to make that actually a 4-day weekend. It's a 3-day weekend with a half day leading in, again, because with graduation, I've got to fit 2 more days into the spring that I didn't have to do last year. Spring break, and then falling closely behind it is going to be the Good Friday holiday, and a professional development day would be the Monday after Easter. And then we move through to the end of school that falls very typical to our pattern. Half day, work day, everybody's finalizing grades and getting ready to head into graduation. So that is calendar A. And then yes?
Why did it say Keys ? For the day?
I don't think we had the Keys graduation finalized at the time we.
It's usually the Friday.
It's most likely the 24th. They just have to verify that.
Okay.
We knew that the Dickies Arena was verified, but we will definitely finalize that. And then can we pull up draft B? And I'll show you. So all those things I just said are still true. We'll just look at the Christmas break here. So this one has us going. Sorry, no, I think I did that at the same time as you did. Going up until the following Wednesday. The other calendar had us out on Friday the 15th. This takes us through Wednesday the 20th. So there aren't as many days prior to Christmas, but a longer run coming back in January, and then a work day and moving in. Everything else about the spring would be the same as what we just looked at. And so I think Ms. Hollander then has some campus feedback that I may have stepped on toes just a smidge.
No, not at all, not at all. So we were able to capture the data that we gathered when we allowed the 2 groups to weigh in. If you look at the parent and community, I don't know if you can see that small number, but it's 52% in favor of draft B and 45.6 for draft A, with just a couple of percentage points for no preference. The bottom one is our employees, and you see a 59.6 in favor of the draft B and 38.2 for calendar A. A couple of things I wanted to share. There were 943 responses from employees, which was a pretty good response. And then for parents, it was right under 2,000 that weighed in on that as well. I want to share a few of the comments. She did share one of them. Both of them said, thank you for inviting us to participate. And so they were very thankful for that. Interestingly enough, it says we have a lot of students that celebrate their Christmas on January 7th and 8th, so this calendar will eliminate absences on the 8th. And then third, both of them said it was better for working parents. So really that could go either way. I wasn't real sure about that. Holly and I got a chance to view 7 or 8 other district calendars, and only one of them, or was it 2?
Only one in these sets.
Only one is starting later than us. So many school districts are starting as early as we are, which is a trend that we're starting to see. Let me see. Oh, I do want to go back to our DLIC meeting. We did have a fabulous turnout at that meeting and lots of good questions. And I just feel like it has been a process that we've followed that's worked very well. Any questions?
You said one started later than us. How many started earlier than us? Or let me rephrase that. How many started earlier than calendar B?
So both calendars are the same start date. They're both August 10th.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase again. How many have Christmas starting earlier than calendar B?
We didn't look at Christmas. We were
Oh, okay.
looking at the beginning dates.
Oh, okay,
We
sorry.
can look at this.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, that one's separate. I just can't separate the page. So most of them, of these samples that we have, we certainly don't have.
Are doing B?
Are doing A, are doing out on the 15th.
Okay, out on the 15th, which is an earlier.
And coming back January 2nd.
Second, not
Now,
fourth.
we do not have the ones that we, that we're closest to most likely having, a teacher with kids who live in another district. We do not have our closest districts. These are, do we name them here?
Further away.
They're further away.
They're in the North Texas area. It's Forney and Garland. We are at the mercy of those who want to share, because many of them don't want to share.
Why is that?
A lot of them have not made the decision yet.
Okay.
They're waiting for someone else to go first.
And just as a reminder, so you are looking at it now, you do not make a decision on this until December.
Okay.
And so we do have time to consider things, and so it's not something you have to decide today. We just wanted to provide you with the information we've received.
All right, any additional questions on the calendar?
Now, when do AP and IB testing start?
First week of May. We don't have the official calendar yet. Every once in a while, we might have something like April 30th, but it's usually the first week of May.
Oh, and this is not, I love the calendar, I don't have a complaint, but as far as instruction goes, I know, we'll go 7 weeks without a break there at the end, and then we send kids to AP and IB testing and then finals. And we sat down, I remember on our staff and said, we wish we had a 3-day weekend somewhere before we go into those long dragging test days.
So
You got actually almost 7 weeks, and you're asking those kids to, grind that stone for 7 straight weeks without a break. But then you look at all the other months, and you have breaks all through the other months. And I know there's so many days in each track. I understand that. I was on the calendar committee one year, and they kicked me off.
It happened earlier.
I will say,
It'd be nice to have a 3-day weekend, like halftime in a football game, to catch your breath before we really count those kids with all those tests.
and to your point, though, the students that would be taking potentially the very most tests, students that are taking a high number of IB and AP tests are not taking final exams. They're exempt from those final exams based on the number of AP and IB tests. So it's not truly doubled up, like for every class I'm in, I'm taking an AP test and a final exam.
Those taking the AP sometimes only take 1 or 2 AP courses, and they end up taking them 5.
Right, but so if they were really bogged down in the AP test, they're probably not going to be bogged down. So it may put an extra test, like yes, they're going to take an AP test and they're going to have finals a few weeks later. But it wouldn't be like 10 tests in the month.
It's, and you mentioned this, but it's the placement of Easter. It's every year, we run into different constraints on the calendar. The day of the week of this holiday, where Easter falls, we added leap year. And every year the calendar rotates. The year, once we find one we like, it's 7 years before we can do it again. if we can do it again, and if graduation is the same day. But yeah, Easter being so close, you get a nice long weekend right after you've been out a week. And if that was in April more, that would be handy.
How many extra minutes are we going for snow days? 3 days.
We have 3 days through our PD waiver days. We have 3 additional days of minutes built in for our students.
All right, any more questions? All right, thank you. All right, now we are ready for our overview of the School First Financial Rating Systems of Texas. Mr. Jones is just going to hop right up and take over.
Okay. The School First is the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. Purpose is to hold districts accountable for the quality of our financial management. And the ratings are assigned based on last year's audit. So the audit that was brought to you back in January. So it's pretty old data at this point, 2020, 2021. And it's based on 20 different indicators. Indicators 1 through 5 are critical indicators. If you fail any one of those, you automatically receive a substandard achievement. And ceiling indicators were introduced in last year's rating for the very first time. On these 5 questions, if you fell on any of those 5, you automatically cannot get above a certain score on those ones. Okay, the first indicator is just a timely filing of our financial reports. So we brought the audit to the board on January 10th of last year, and it had to be filed by January 28th, and it was submitted by January 25th electronically. Indicator number 2 is, did we receive an unmodified opinion from our auditors on the financial reports? And the answer was yes, so we passed that one. Indicator number 3 is, are you making all your bond payments like you're supposed to? And HEBIC's never defaulted on a bond payment. Indicator number 4 is just our payments to different governmental agencies, mainly payroll things. Are we making those on time? And everything, and we were making all of those on time. Indicator number 5, what has not been scored in several years. It's a assets to liabilities ratio, and TEA is still trying to work out one that works for all the districts and doesn't get too many of them, trying to figure out something that actually represents what the districts are doing. On the remaining indicators, 6 through 20, we receive points for these, and those are what determine your actual score. Number 6 is one of those first ceiling indicators, and it was the average change in your fund balance over 3 years less than 25% on the assigned or unassigned fund balances. And if those exceed 75 days of operational, our average increase on those was 20% over those 3 years, and we have 81 days of assigned and unassigned fund balance at this time. Indicator number 7 is about the amount of cash you have on hand. At the end of the year, based on our current numbers, we had 338 days available, so well in excess of the 90 days required for this one. Number 8 is current assets to current liability ratio. You had to have greater than or equal to a 3.0 on this ratio. We had a 4.1843 and got all the points on that one. Indicator number 9, did your revenues equal or exceed your expenditures? And our revenues did exceed expenditures by 10.7%. You can also, on this one, if you have fund balance to cover excessive expenditures, you can do that as well, where your expenditures do exceed your revenues slightly. Indicator number 10 was not scored in this year's rating. Due to COVID, there was a couple of indicators they did not score. And indicator number 10 was comparing your budget versus your actual revenue for that year over 3 years. Because of COVID and not knowing how many kids you were going to have show or anything, you might not have been able to guess your revenue number for that year. So that did cause it to where they decided not to score it for anybody this year. Indicator number 11 is about long-term liabilities to total assets ratio. You had to be under, less than or equal to a 0.6. Ours was at a 0.4735 this year. Indicator number 12 is on the debt to property value ratio. Needs to be less than or equal to 4.
and we had a 2.2625 on that one. Administrative cost ratio is measuring your administrative salaries versus what you're spending on instruction. So on this one, you want to be, in a district of our size, you want to be under 0.0855, and we were at 0.0595. That was actually a reduction. We'd been at 0.6 for years and years and dropped to 0.595 this year. Indicator number 14 is a less than a 15% decline in student to staff ratio over 3 years. This one is measuring to make sure if you're having a decline in your students that you're also reducing your staff at the same time in that 3 years, trying to stay close on that one. And we did have a ratio that had decreased 4.72% over the 3 years. Indicator number 15 was another one they did not score due to COVID. Every year before legislative session, we have to submit a projection of what our enrollment's going to be. So a year or two before COVID, nobody knew how many students they were going to lose because nobody knew it was coming. So they threw this one out for this year since it was going to be so far off for everyone. Number 16 is, does your PEMS data that you submit, does it match what your annual financial report was, and it needs to be within 3%? We had a 410 variance on 191 million, so less than, I think it was around 0% on that. Usually it's just caused by the way it rounds. For pennies, it'll round up or down on there and just submits the whole dollar amount. Number 17 is financial reports free of any instance of material weakness. This is another one of the ceiling indicators, and we did pass the indicator. Number 18 is, did the independent auditor indicate the annual financial report was free of any instance of material noncompliance on grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, and federal funds? And we got the full 10 points on this one. Number 19 is, did the school district post the required financial information on its website? And we did, so we received the 5 points on this one. And the final indicator, number 20, is, did the school board discuss property values within 120 days of adopting the budget? And we did get a pass on that one. So our score for this year was 100 out of the 100 available points for a superior rating.
So we have a public hearing on this report. I declare this public meeting now open to hear comments concerning the report presented on the School First Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. Did anybody have anything, any comments they wanted to make on this report?
Awesome.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I now close this public meeting. We do not have any action items on the agenda this evening. We're to open forum number 2. Ms. Hollander, anything for open forum number 2? All right, other business. Opportunity for board members to request items be placed on future board agendas. Does anybody have anything? All right, then we'll move to item 15.02, Goal 3 Update Advocacy Matrix. Mr. Campos and Ms. Dawn Jordan Wells.
All righty, I am going to pass 3 documents to you. So take one of each when you get it. One of them is the HEB ISD legislative priorities. The second one is the advocacy matrix. And the third is the legislative bill process. Our legislative priorities, I'll let you get it first. Our legislative priorities include school finance, local control, school privatization, school facilities and bonds, teacher recruitment and retention, and state accountability. Under each area, you'll find the talking points that we'll use to communicate with our elected officials. Tonight, we want to add to the advocacy matrix by assigning each of us to specific specific elected officials, we will have the responsibility to communicate with concerning the district's legislative priorities. So what Fred and I, well, I'm gonna let Fred tell you what we did.
So just to catch everybody up, this is our board goal for advocacy, and this board as a whole definitely feels advocacy is something that we as school board members as well as the district should be taking place with. So now that the election is over, we have taken the opportunity to put together our currently elected officials. We've worked real closely, as you know from previous, come with our legislative priorities, reduce it down to a one sheet. And what you have here is going to be a advocate matrix where we're going to double assign every trustee, 2 people assigned to them, so that you can have the opportunity to start actually advocating for those that make decisions above us and for our community. So what you have here is those 3 things that Dawn has put together. And we have an idea of who should be assigned to who. But we're just gonna say, let's start with this with pencil, and then we're gonna have a discussion, and if one person has a connection more with another, we may wanna do that. And I just wanna add that this is, I'm very excited that we have the opportunity to do this, as I don't think many boards do this. And as you know, since the election, that our district has changed quite a lot. So we have some new names here. So here we go.
And before you do that, Fred, just so you know, we worked with Lydia to see who is based on where we live, who we currently have as our representatives, senators. So we tried to align it that way first, geographically. And then we wanted to assign a partner, and we wanted to, some people we just reassigned differently based on such circumstances. So.
Okay.
So in the interest of time, these sections are set up by the different groups: school finance, local control, et cetera, et cetera. We're only tonight going to put in the names in the first one, and they would carry over for each of the 3. So again, I'm just gonna read them off as suggestions. We'll write them all down, and then we can talk and say, oh, I know this person better than this person, and make some tweaks. Ready, set, go. Okay. So for U.S. Senator Corrin, I put Julie Cole and Matt Romero. For U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, I put Julie Cole. By the way, we tried to do 3 per person with certain circumstances where Julie, because of the education, you might have 4, and Andy and Rochelle Ross will have 2. All right, for U.S. Representative Kay Granger, we put Fred Campos and Andy Cargile. For U.S. Representative Beth Van Dyne, we put Fred Campos and Chris Brown. For U.S. Representative Mark Vesey, we put Matt Romero and Don Jordan Wells.
Slow down a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
For State Senator Kelly Hancock, we put Fred Campos and Rochelle Ross. For State Senator Brian Birdwell, we put Chris Brown and Julie Cole. For District 92, House Representative Solomon Benjani, we put Andy Cargile and Jordan Wells? Don Jordan Wells.
That would be
I forgot the D, sorry. Yeah. District 94, Tony Tinholt, we put, I can't read my own writing, Rochelle Ross and Don Jordan Wells. District 98, House Representative Giovanni, we put Chris Brown and Matt Romero. And then for our State Board of Education, Pat Hardy, we put Julie Cole. That gives Julie Cole 4, Chris Brown 3, Fred Campos 3, Don Jordan Wells 3, Andy Cargile 2, Rochelle Ross 2, and Matt Romero 3. Again, this is not this is a suggestion, so it open it.
Okay with it, or do you need any changes to be made? Really? Well, all right.
And just a final comment, the reason we assign 2 double assigned is because schedules, conflicts, things happen, there's more than one person to reach out.
But just to be clear, for me, this doesn't mean that I'm restricted to only speaking to these, right? I can speak to others if the need arises or the opportunity arises.
Mm-hmm. Our responsibility is to reach out to our assigned elected officials, discuss their priorities using the talking points as our guide, use a matrix to document the communication in the comments section on here, and add the meeting date to the board activity chart. On here, it says every board will hold at least one conversation with key legislators around an approved legislative agenda item as measured by the board activity chart every quarter. So we probably will need to have a blank line instead of just those words, so that you can indicate that you, like the day that you met, and who met with the legislator.
And then one final comment, that third piece of paper, Julie attended a session. This was a beautiful. Dawn attended a session. This was a beautiful visual representation of how a bill's processed. I want to bring your attention to the most important thing is the January and February is the time when they're putting bills together and bills are being filed.
Yeah, and that's when you want to try to get in front of your folks before that second reading, for sure.
That's not to say that you're not continuing to develop relationships, but realize that when it's down here, you're late in the game.
Also, when a bill is introduced related to one of our priorities, as you see on the matrix, you want to track and document how the elected official to whom you are assigned votes. Add any other comments relating to their voting in the comments section. The matrix will be placed in the board ELT shared Google folder for easy access and documentation, and we will discuss and update periodically at board meetings.
I will also add that there are a couple of TASB opportunities in February that I got save the date on, and I don't have a lot of detail on yet, but the one that you might want to keep on your calendar is February the 21st. That's the TASB Legislative Conference in Austin. Generally what happens is in the morning, it's, conference time and speakers, and then in the afternoon, an opportunity to go to the Capitol to speak to our representatives. So keep that as a possibility on your calendar for attending that.
Yeah, I think it was on, I want to say I saw it on the dates to remember.
I might have asked you to put it on there,
I
yeah.
saw it on there. Because I was going through that today, adding stuff
There
to
aren't
my
a lot of
calendar.
details yet. I just know the date.
All right, any questions on this item? All right, thank you, Don and Fred. I know you put a lot of work into that, so we appreciate that. All right, 15.03, consider approval of membership with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I'll accept a motion.
I move the board approve renewing the membership with the North Central Texas Council of Governments at the cost of $100 as budgeted in the board's budget.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All right. I have a motion and a second for the board to approve renewing the membership with the North Central Texas Council of Governments at the cost of $100 as budgeted in the board's budget. Please vote. That motion passes. We still don't need a closed session, correct, Dr. Harrington? No, sir. All right, then I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Julie, what was that again you were saying? TASB?
TASB